Donald Trump giving praise to a huge crowd on hand in Arizona when he started his day in Mexico, flying out of Phoenix in the morning. What a day it was in campaign 2016 for the Republican nominee.
He was all over the place. He was down in Mexico in the midday, and then later in the afternoon flew to Arizona for
this campaign has been a roller coaster. He's up, he's down, he win, he'll never win.
He doesn't want to win.
He doesn't want to win. I thought last night you saw how he can win.
Yeah.
Talking about the issues, and that's what he did for over an hour in this speech.
That's what everyone wants to hear, and he came up with a 10-point plan to fix the immigration problem here in America.
In about a half hour, we're going to say hello. We just don't have the time right now.
All right.
So
hope you had a great night. You probably fell asleep in the middle of the speech because it was a pretty long speech.
Right.
So we're going to tell
Unless you have a normal
said.
schedule, you probably stayed up, but not like us who get up in the middle of the night.
This is true. This is true.
The theme of this speech, America First. Watch.
While there are many illegal immigrants in our country who are good people, this doesn't change the fact that most illegal immigrants are lower-skilled workers with less education who compete directly against vulnerable American workers. To all the politicians, donors, and special interests, there is only one core issue in the immigration debate, and that issue is the well-being of the American people. Hillary Clinton, for instance, talks constantly about her fears that families will be separated. But she's not talking about the American families who have been permanently separated from their loved ones because of a preventable homicide.
So he went through this 10-point plan in detail, and he said in the beginning, hey, listen, this is not going to be my normal speech where we just have a good time in a raucous atmosphere. It's a bigger crowd, a very supportive crowd, but this is a policy speech.
Well, and I kept thinking, I agree with you. The theme was the Democrats are focused on the illegals, not separating families. They're feeling sorry for the illegals that are here. And he says, hey, let me remind you of something. We have to put America first. What about Americans? And then he talked a lot about the families that have lost their loved ones, that have lost their children at the hands of illegal immigrants.
So I kept thinking as I'm watching this speech, what's the argument against each point? So he says a lot of illegal aliens are good people. They come here to support their families. That's great. But what about the effect on American workers? If you flood a labor market with low-skill, low-wage labor, what does it do to the wages of people who already live here? What's the counter-argument to that? I haven't heard a single person try to rebut that because it's basic supply and demand. It's irrefutable. That's true.
And says it costs America $113 billion a year.
Well, you know the rebuttal is, you probably don't accept it. The rebuttal is, well, other people come to this country out of a desperate situation for an opportunity, and we should be compassionate towards what they want. What Donald Trump is pointing out is there's a cost for what they want.
And I thought Trump acknowledged the first part in a way that I had not seen him do before, that, you know, people do come here for legitimate reasons because they want a better life. But as you said, there is a cost, and the president's job is to look out for the well-being of Americans. That's why he's the president of the United States of America.
What I gathered, though, I think I gathered he's more concerned about the illegals here that are doing things illegally. Right. First of all, it's illegal for them to get here. But second of all, a lot of them are committing crimes, and he focused a lot in a speech last night about that. But his number one point last night was building the wall. Take a listen.
Are you ready? Are you ready? We will build a great wall along the southern border, and Mexico will pay for the wall. They don't know it yet, but they're going to pay for the wall. On day one, we will begin working on an impenetrable, physical, tall, powerful, beautiful southern border wall. We will use the best technology, including above and below ground sensors, that's the tunnels, towers, aerial surveillance, and manpower to supplement the wall, find and dislocate tunnels, and keep out criminal cartels.
Which the situation is getting worse. It was pointed out to me yesterday by Governor Perry. He said, let me give you an idea of what's happening at the border. He, 20, 30 years ago, there was no 9/11. and people weren't as concerned about security in the South, and there weren't this type of illegal activity going on with drugs going up and down in the South and human smuggling. So therefore, we had a totally different view. Somehow this became partisan over the last 20 years, and when you want to get America's attention, start talking about security, especially in the wake of the 15-year mark of 9/11, knowing that there's ISIS and Al-Qaeda trying to get here. So the big story was when Donald Trump went south to meet with the Mexican president and took him up, much to the surprise of many, especially his detractors, and talked to the Mexican president about building a wall and having them pay for it, what would the reaction be? Here's a tweet from the Mexican president who, after Donald Trump said we didn't have a chance to get to the conversation about who pays for the wall, the Mexican president quickly tweeted this out after Donald Trump left. At the beginning of the conversation with Donald Trump, I made clear that Mexico will not pay for the wall.
Well, then Donald Trump responded last night, even in the speech. He said, Mexico's going to work with us, especially after my meeting with him today. And then the campaign sent this information to us. They said both parties knew each other's positions going into today, and we didn't think it was appropriate to start negotiating during the meeting, which I understand.
But, like, who cares, actually? If you've reached the point where you're debating who pays for the wall, then the proponents of the wall have already won the argument, because the presupposition is you're getting a wall. Because, again, there's no real argument against it. If you love something, you protect it.
Right.
Would you argue that people shouldn't lock the door when they leave their kids at home? I mean, like, what's the argument against a wall?
By the way, Sting, one of the Sting songs says, if you love someone, set them free, which is a whole different topic.
But he's wrong, I think.
Right? See, again, you're calling out Sting. If you're watching, you can call in. We also want you to write in. John Podesta, who's heading up the Clinton campaign, said that Donald Trump choked by not making the president, Mexican president, let him know that he passed to pay for the wall. But that's a very Trumpian-type statement.
I mean, look, if Trump has 68 more days like yesterday, he'll be president of the United States. I mean, talking about policy is how he wins. Talking about himself is how he loses.
Right.
Well, we played you that first soundbite at the top of the show, and the last line in that soundbite talks about the American people who have lost their loved ones, who have lost their kids at the hands of illegal immigrants. And so last night he had a lot of those moms. They're called angel moms. They were wearing T-shirts. They were standing behind him wearing T-shirts with pictures of their loved ones, their sons, their daughters, that were killed at the hands of illegal immigrants here in America. Here's one of the moms.
I wrote 2 letters to President Obama after my son was killed because I started doing research and realized what a horrific problem this was in our country. I got no response from him. I know that several other mothers have reached out to Hillary Clinton, and you would think mother to mother that this would mean something to her, that she would reach out to us, that she would at least have something to say to us, and she has nothing to say other than how she's going to protect illegals, how she's going to bring more unvetted refugees into this country. I haven't heard her once talk about what she's going to do for Americans, quite frankly, and that frightens me to the country that we're going to leave our children and our grandchildren.
That's Marianne Mendoza. Her son Brandon was killed. He was a police officer and was killed by a drunk driver going the wrong way on the interstate, killed him at impact, and he was an illegal immigrant.
There are a lot of victims' families of the Democratic National Committee, but none of these families, I noticed. This from the party that's always telling us if it saves just one life, we'll do it. And yet I'm amazed by how these people are utterly ignored by the Clinton campaign, by the Obama administration. Why is that? Because it's not politically convenient.
Right, it absolutely is. I heard the counter-argument was, listen, there are a lot of horrible things going on by criminals to Americans. Why overemphasize that illegals are doing it? How does that make it worse? But in the big picture, you must, if you're inside the Clinton camp and you see the polls closing, the once insurmountable, inevitable victory, and you're watching this and you have a candidate who is not electrifying on the stump like Obama or her husband, how is she going to get in the news? Well, she did a speech yesterday. No one's talking about
criticizing him for going to Mexico.
Yeah.
But can I say why you do emphasize these crimes? Because they're especially infuriating. They don't need to happen. They only happen because we allow our border to be porous because it benefits one party politically. I mean, that's the truth. It's totally unnecessary. Yeah, a lot of bad things happen, but these are preventable crimes.
Well, listen, when I interviewed Kate Steinle's family, and I remember looking at the rap sheet of the illegal immigrant that killed their daughter in San Francisco, which is a sanctuary city. It was page after page. That guy had been deported 5 times and is still allowed to live in this country. because of sanctuary cities.
And that was the emphasis yesterday. And in the big picture, I'm wondering what this is going to mean at the polls. For the longest, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, people were questioning whether Donald Trump actually wanted to win.
Yeah,
he was shaking up his campaign. People were leaving. Not many people were coming in. And he was nowhere to be found. And now nobody's questioning whether he wants to win.
So you think he'll win if he stays on message and he continues
if he sticks to the issues? I think the public agrees with him on this stuff.
Right. Did anyone see Heather Nauert at 5 o'clock?
I saw her. Yes, she's one of the hardest working women.
Maybe next to you, Ainsley.
No, that's